Hello everybody. Now in this session we will look about how to perform CRUD operations by going through a practical example. So for this I'm using Visual Studio 2015 and I'm using SQL Server 2008 R2. So before we start we will first work on the database. So I will make our database here first. I'm giving it name practice. And now I will make one table. I'm adding ID column which I am making as a primary key here. Also I do not want to give it a value, so I am using identity here. So the value will automatically come. Next I will take here name column, department, experience. So this is my table structure that I'm taking. Now I will insert some records. ID we do not have to give because it is identity. So I will give the names and then I will give the department and then I will give the experience. So already I have written the commands to insert the records, and to save time I will copy the records from there. So this is my file from which I can copy rest of the commands. So let's see how many records are there now. So we have 6 records in the table at this time. Okay. So now the database part is over till now. Now we wanted to fetch these records from our application. So this makes our backend part, and our application that will make the front end part. So for this I'm using Visual Studio. So for the first example I'm using console application, which will give me character user interface. So I will choose console application from here and click on OK. Okay, so it's done now. Now if you want to use ADO.NET, what we will do, the first step is we have to add the DLL. Next step is we have to create the connection object. And we have to pass connection string here. Now the connection string, it contains server name. So the server name in my case I can copy directly it from here also. I can click on connect and this is my server name. So you can copy it from here. Next is database name. So in my case it is practice. The third is credentials. So if you have seen, when I've started SQL Server, I've used Windows authentication. So in that case I will have to give here integrated security is equal to true. If you have selected Windows SQL Server Authentication here, in that case you will have to give username and password there. But in my case it is Windows Authentication. Okay. Now as you know that this slash, this means escape sequence. So either I will have to add double slash, or I can also add a @ sign here. So there is no need to use double slashes anywhere in this path now. So the connection object is created. The next step, we have to create the command object, SQL command object, in which we will pass either the query or the procedure name. So right now I'm using inline query. So my query will be select star from employee, because I wanted to get all the records from the table. And the second parameter, I will have to pass connection object. Next step is open the connection. Now we have to execute the query. Now which method you will use? So I will be using in this case execute reader, because I wanted to get multiple records from by executing this query. So once you use this method, it will return you all the records which satisfy this condition or this query. Okay. So to hold the records, we will have to use object of SQL data reader. And all my records are stored in this reader object. Now because I'm using console application, so there is no control here with which I can bind all the records. So I'm using a loop here to iterate through all the records that are stored in this collection. So I can say read.read. This read is the method which is used to get all the records one by one. And to display the records, I can use here console.writeLine. Now either I can use index number, or I can also use the column name. Now suppose I want to display all the columns. Now again this is the index, and then again I'm using the column name. Once it is done, then we have to close the connection. Sorry, so it will be close. We also have to destroy this object. So for that we have to call the method dispose. Because garbage collection in .NET, it only removes the objects which are the part of managed code. Okay. So this connection, this is not part of managed code. So we have to call dispose method explicitly to remove this object. Because when you say close, it is only closed, but the object still remains in the memory. So if you want to remove it, we have to call dispose method explicitly. Now to see the result, I'm pressing Ctrl F5. Okay, some problem is there. I will just check. Okay, so the table name is wrong. So it is employees, only employee. So we can see all the records are coming here now. So this is how we can use execute reader to execute the query, and whatever query results will come by executing this query, we are holding those records in object of SQL data reader. And by using this read method, which reads the records one by one, we can display all the records on the screen. So again, if we follow the steps, what were the steps? First, add the DLL. Second, use the connection object in which we pass the connection string. Next, we have to use the command object in which we pass the query, and also we are passing the connection object as a parameter. Open the connection, execute the query, and then fetch the records one by one. In the next example, I will be using web application in which I will bind this reader with a grid view.